Hello everyone and welcome to the Sweeney Show, Business and Law Podcast. My name is David Sweeney and joining me here today is Joanne O Riordan. Joanne, you're very, very welcome.
Thanks very much for having me.
So Joanne is a journalist, UCC graduate, campaigner. I've just seen some of your articles on sports journalism recently. You're now a writer with the Irish Times.
Yep.
How's that going for you? How do you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's going very well now. I'm there, I suppose I joined June 2017, so I'm there now quite some time. But no, I'm absolutely loving it. It was kind of funny because the first 6 months, no one knew it was me because the Irish Times forgot to put in the O in my name. And I had to ring them up and be like, I didn't take the soup. And they were like laughing. They were like, oh, sorry. And then they put the O back in and then they put in a picture. And then everyone was like, that's not that Joanne O Riordan, is it? And yeah, more and more people are like coming up to me every single day saying that they read the article. Yeah, and I always joke I have a new fan base now. So like normally it was like elderly women who watch the Late Late Show who'd like love to give me a kiss or whatever. But now it's like middle-aged men who are like, why are you writing trash about Man City or Liverpool? And I'm like, it's gotta be done.
Cork hurling.
Or Cork hurling, yeah.
And how did that come about? Because like your background, your undergraduate is in criminology, isn't it? It's a law undergraduate. How did you make the leap from criminology to sports journalism?
In general, I was always obsessed with sports, and I was always obsessed with writing. And being a journalist, I always kind of like the idea of going out, meeting new people, and kind of exploring different environments and like hearing people's stories, no matter what they are. Because like I always felt that like ordinary people have like extraordinary stories to tell, no matter who it is. So then when I suppose when I did my leaving cert, I picked criminology because I was highly into like what makes a person tick and why you would turn into a criminal and different things like that. And then, you know, we kind of did some of the psychology and sociology aspects of it, and I thought, you know, it'd be kind of interesting, even in a sports angle, you know, like what would make a person like drive to win like all the time, that hunger and desire. So
do you think there's a connection with what makes a person a criminal to what makes a person a successful athlete?
I think in general the traits you would have as a criminal, like the ruthlessness, the like not really manipulation to a degree, but like certain kind of corporate people, you know, that manipulation to kind of get what they want and things like that, and be able to, I suppose, charm everyone around them. They're all kind of criminal aspects as well. Like a friend of mine did her dissertation on it, and she obviously found that like corporate psychopaths were the reason the global economic recession happened, and they're the ones who don't face the brunt of it. So just really cool stuff. Like, but in terms of an athlete point of view, like I suppose that personality trait will be there, or just be channeled a little bit differently, but you can also get like that same element of ruthlessness and sheer desire to win. Like,
I'm not saying all professional athletes are insane.
You get it. You
are
get it
psychopaths,
like,
but I understand.
You get in some places, like, you know, I mean, if you take people who take drugs, it's like, or take like doping, performance enhancing drugs, it's like that sheer desire to win and that ruthlessness and like the manipulation. Like, I mean, if anyone watched Lance Armstrong, it's the same kind of vibe.
Quite Machiavellian, isn't it? You know, the means justify the ends.
Yeah.
And so your criminology degree, like, is it what we see on the TV? Like all these TV shows and these new podcasts out, 10 Buddy and all these making a murderer.
I wish it would have made my 4 years way more exciting. You know what? When the first day we walked in, our lecturer, our professor said, you know, this isn't CSI, this isn't Criminal Minds, this isn't
CSI
what you'd
Cork,
expect.
is it?
CSI Cork,
yeah.
God. And I remember 10 people dropped out within that first week because it wasn't what they wanted to do. But criminology is more like, for me, I did the sociology aspect of it, meaning I looked at what society would do when someone turns criminal, or how society would turn someone criminal. Whereas a lot of my friends would have done like a psychology aspect, like the brain and different things like that. But
and in the social aspect then, would you look at, you know, the gender, what's making up the population of prisons? Like, would you look at kind of like, it's nearly an 80%, 90% male population in prison at the moment in Ireland. Do you look at then why society is predominantly, it's males that are carrying out crimes?
I suppose we always had this like joke in criminology that like it would pay, like it's not, you don't pay to be a woman in like general society, like, you know, like different jobs, you know, things like that, and like gender discrimination, but it definitely pays to be a woman in the crime world, because it's just like you're given a lot more, I suppose, like it's a bit more forgiving, because like how can a woman potentially like have that ruthless streak, and like they do. And I think as well what you find when you go into female prisons is that a lot of them would have been abused by a male counterpart, and you know, like either like love or like physical or, you know, sexual or emotional, mental, whatever, and then I suppose then the reason they'd commit a crime would be like they've just had enough, like at breaking point. So that's what we call the rational choice theory. So the idea that like you're not in a situation where rationality is there, like you're in a really awful situation, and like whatever is the best option for you, you're going to take it at every kind of lens. So yeah.
And do you think then, is there such thing as rehabilitation? Is there a thing of like that kind of instant like decision making to commit a crime, male or female, not in particular, that like, and that person goes into a judicial system or goes into whatever probation system, like is there a rehabilitation? Does that properly exist? From a social point of view?
It's always like really funny because I think like people don't really understand that 0.1% of the population are like general psychopaths. Like they think that anyone who commits a crime is a full-on psychopath, but like there's circumstances kind of surrounding it that you wouldn't know about, you know, maybe like bad, you know, the way they were raised, you know, maybe the interactions that they would have had with adults, you know, different things like that. Like there's always something that would make someone kind of tick to a certain degree. I suppose, can people be rehabilitated? I think so personally. Like I've gone into prisons and, you know, they've raised money for Special Olympics Ireland, you know, they've raised even money for, like when I was born, for like my foundation down in Spike Island to get me up and going, you know, like different things like that. So like they do have a heart and they do care. It's just that, you know, different circumstances. Again, it's like that rational choice, like what would you do in that moment if that was you?
How did you end up in prison?
My choice. No, I suppose Spike Island wrote a letter to my parents when I was 1 or 2, saying that their prisoners were doing this fundraising. So they walked the courtyard from Cork to Dublin. Old road as well at the time, so a bit longer. So I think they spent like 5 hours maybe out there in total. And my mom, she's like a pure softie, she wanted to visit them. And, you know, it was kind of cool because like they were, say, my brother's age. So like my brothers are 14, 15 years older than me. So all who were in there, like, my mom would have been going home to the same age group, and a lot of them, like, they would have been just failed, like, in the past, either by like society, by their parents, or like maybe they went into a system and they were just kind of washed out of it or tossed around like a hot potato and no one cared. So yeah, in general, like that's kind of how it worked. And yeah, it was kind of cool. We went down there and they were really excited, and they made me loads of different...
Do you remember it? Or?
I remember bits and pieces. They made me loads of different presents. I remember there's like one, we have like an art canvas in our house, and it's a Dalmatian and with building blocks, and they're spelling Joanne with the building blocks, and everyone always comes in and they're like, oh my god, that's so amazing, what artist did you get that from? And we're like, Spike Island prisoners. But they all had talents.
Really sentimental piece.
They all had talents down there. I suppose with criminology, we had to visit Cork prison twice, and then my mom's kind of niece-in-law, if that makes any bit of sense, she was one of the not a prisoner, she was a guard, a warden up in Mountjoy, so she asked me would I come in.
Okay, and so for those who don't know your story, where your story begins in Mill Street, that's you're from, and you have, I suppose you've just had overcome challenges throughout your life, haven't you?
Yeah, so I suppose for anyone who's not familiar, like I was born on the 24th of April in 1996, and I was born with a rare condition known as total amelia, meaning I was born without all 4 of my limbs, and there's no medical reason as to why it happened, like it just happened. And
it's quite rare, isn't it?
It's quite rare. Yeah. I'm one of 7 people in the world living with the condition. So yeah, I suppose my parents, I have 4 older siblings, and my siblings never treated me any differently. I was always the same. You know, they wrestled me like everyone else. My eldest brother threw me into a chandelier, knocking out my 2 front teeth. Another time they threw me.
That's big brothers for you, isn't it?
Yeah, another time they threw me into a Christmas tree and I got lost for 2 hours. So like good family fun. So like I suppose for me, like everyone would say,
so you were
like,
never treated any different.
I was never treated any differently. So in general, the challenges that I had to face, I suppose I never really saw them as challenges. It was more just something that I had to overcome. But I remember like something really interesting. I was at a Women in Sport conference about 6 months ago maybe now, and we were saying like, oh, we always commend people on jumping over the hurdles and the obstacles that they have in their life, but like no one really acts to remove these obstacles. Like we're all like, oh, well done, you know, you had this. But yeah, there was loads of obstacles, you know, getting into education, having a personal assistant from when I started preschool, getting my books onto like a PDF format, that was another challenge. And secondary school.
Do you think things have changed now, or have they become easier?
I think for some instances they have become easier. Like I think we're more aware that people with disabilities do exist, and I think the issue for us now is like we don't really know what to do now, and we're kind of all in like a predicament where we're like, we do want to help, but we don't want to overstep, because like it's a bit awkward if someone goes, do you need any help, and you're like, no, I'm fine. And then also you know you don't really know a person's like state of mind as well at that state in that moment. So, but yeah, no, I think we're definitely getting better, like different accessibility in terms of like getting into buildings and things like that. Like it is getting better, but it's just access now to institutions and different things like that now. Okay.
But it seems though that like you were you did a lot quite young. You're still quite young. You're only like early 20s, aren't you?
22, yeah.
Yeah, you know, but like when you were kind of 14, 15, you were is that when you spoke to the UN?
So when I was 15, I confronted Enda Kenny about the disability cut. So he was on an election campaign in 2011, and I was doing my junior cert mock exams, and Enda Kenny was coming to Mill Street, and I still kind of have a huge obsession with Enda Kenny. His hair amazed me at the age of 15. And my mother was like, oh,
So like a crush?
no, I wouldn't really say crush, because I think that's in the criminology world, that's a bit weird. But no, he came to Mill Street, and my mother rang the school, and they pulled me out of my French mock. Note to self, don't pull yourself out of your French mock. And I went up and I met him, and I asked him what would he do to protect people with disabilities, and he said everything within his power in his government, and they made the cut to the disability payment. And then I wrote a letter to the Irish Examiner, like saying how it was going to affect everyone. And he overturned the cut. And then
but you held him accountable for what he was going to say, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, and a lot of people like would have emailed or like wrote back into the Examiner saying like, oh, of course he did like the U-turn, you know, what a coward and things like that. But I thought it was quite like brave is kind of the wrong word, but I thought it was like, you know, you don't learn unless you admit that you're wrong. And he admitted that he was wrong, and he admitted that it was the wrong thing to do, and he overturned it. So I never would say like, oh, he was a coward for overturning. I would just say fair play to him for saying he was wrong on such a public domain.
That's leadership, isn't it?
Yeah. So then, when I turned 16, I was on the Late Late Show first, and I was talking about technology and how technology has helped me. So like my chair, my phone, my computer, everything else in between. And then my brother got a phone call from the UN. So a guy living in, ironically, Vienna, but he's from Galway. He's ran an ICT, Girls in ICT Day for the UN, and he asked me would I go over to speak. And that's where I celebrated my 16th birthday over in the UN. Yeah.
Wow. But that was a powerful speech that you made that day.
Yeah, it was my first ever time doing a public talk, and I suppose thank God I was 16, because you know yourself, like when you're 16 you think you're the center of the universe and nothing kind of really phases you, because you know you are the center of the universe. And I suppose the UN treated me kind of like a normal 16-year-old. Like I remember my birthday present in air quotes like from them was a trip to see the Yankees play baseball, and we got to sit in Jay-Z's like VIP box and meet the players and things like that. So like they're the stuff that I kind of take away from it. Like everyone was always like, but the speech, and I'm like, yeah, the speech was really good.
In Jay-Z's box.
The speech was good, but like when you sit in Jay-Z's box, it's like. But no, in general, like I suppose when I did the speech, I suppose when I was writing it with my brother Stephen, we were like, oh, it's going to have like a sort of impact. Like we kind of knew it was a good speech, but we didn't realize like the impact that it would have overall.
And you just mentioned briefly that you were on the Late Late Show originally to talk about technology. So like if that was 6-7 years ago, where has technology come from now till then for you?
I think it's absolutely flying, like technology. Like we're running like a new kind of program at the moment about smart living. So how you can get your house to be like smart. And if anyone's seen Iron Man, kind of like Jarvis. So you know, like you talk to it and it talks back to you, and it knows what you're doing and different things like that. Because it's different things that you or anyone else like would take for granted. Like I can't.
Is that voice recognition based, or is it
could
app
be
based?
Voice recognition based, app based, phone based, or like. For everyone, because everyone has different needs.
So if just on practical level in your house you can control your heating, lighting, all this kind of stuff.
Yes, or you know, like if my mom like goes uptown and I'm expecting a delivery, because I love buying online, and you know the person comes and I have to say like, oh, can you just leave it at the front door, because I obviously can't open the door. But then we change it in such a way that either one, I could open the door like by automatic, like a bleeper at the side of my chair, like a specific like key card kind of a thing, or that it would like ring the doorbell and my phone would ring and it would be like a FaceTime thing, and I, you know, wouldn't be that awkward of me shouting out the window looking like a hostage. Because I'm sure there are delivery drivers that are like, is she okay?
And is there a big expense to adapt your home to that kind of?
That's the thing
technology?
that we're trying to bring down, and we're working with different companies with. So at the moment, like if you buy, say, Alexa, like as a prime example, you have to get things specifically for Alexa. So Alexa mightn't be able to. Alexa can turn on your plugs, but Alexa can only turn on a certain plug. You know, the plug that's adapted specifically for Alexa, and you have to have the switch on at all times and different things like that. So I suppose we're looking and kind of asking different companies to. You know, obviously I know the reason why they do it is so you buy more of their products and they get more wealthy, but we're asking them to kind of, you know, take into account like the people who might be able to afford it, and say might have, say, a Samsung TV but an iPhone but like a Philips, you know, light, or you know, something like that. So that's kind of where we're going with it.
And you're like, it's interesting your I suppose your initial I won't say altercation, meeting with Enda Kenny, former teacher of the country.
Yeah.
But like, is that something you'd like to do yourself? Maybe get into politics or represent?
No, absolutely not.
No, okay.
I think you're too constrained if you're involved in politics. Like, I mean, I've seen it like firsthand. Like the amount of like, you can see some of them genuinely do want to do something, and they're just like kind of tied. And then, you know, I don't think I could probably handle the amount of like, because I'm not gonna lie, I say stupid things too all the time, and I couldn't imagine like the backlash I'd get for saying something like a little bit silly, you know, whatever. You know, different things like that. But you know, I commend anyone who does go for it. It's a tough job, definitely. But I would always just kind of encourage people to go with the right intentions and. To make sure, you know, you fulfill your election promises.
Sure, yeah. So then the day-to-day for you, you're a full-time journalist?
Yeah.
With Irish Times?
Yeah.
And is that, like, is sports, that's your...
So sports is my reign. And then in general during the week, like, obviously post-UN, people were asking me, do I do like kind of motivational speeches and things like that? And like, I don't really call them motivational speeches because I think that's too like guru and like, let me be your friend, and I'm not Deepak Chopra or anyone like that. So like, sometimes I go into schools and I tell my story just to encourage them to incorporate everyone in their activities, and just to showcase what it's like to live with a disability in case they didn't know. Sometimes I go to companies and, you know, we talk about different things like employment for people with disabilities, or, you know, just kind of in general raising awareness of the fact that, you know, we do kind of want to be part of society and we do want to be valued members of society, you know.
And how do you campaign on a like day-to-day basis? Like, do you take campaigns to the Dáil? Is it just using your presence and your voice?
I suppose for me you'd be using the presence and the voice and using like whatever networking contacts that I would have made like in general. I suppose like I always kind of, you know, myself and my brother, we kind of like, he always laughs because I'm like the face of it, but you know, we both kind of do a lot of work together, like behind the scenes, and just like
your brother made the documentary with you, No Limbs, No Limits, wasn't it?
Yeah. So my brother made No Limbs, No Limits, and that was launched in 2014. But we've taken that around the world. Like, we've taken it to Russia, we've taken it to South Africa, Japan, like Latvia, so many different places throughout the world. And like, you know, sometimes it's like really funny because you go to like Russia and there's like no access like whatsoever, like they don't acknowledge people with disabilities kind of exist. So, you know, when you take something like No Limbs, No Limits there, you're kind of nervous about what their reaction will be or whatever. But a lot of people liked it. It won an award at a Russian film festival, so I was delighted. But the ironic thing was that they had no ramp onto the stage, so I couldn't accept the award. But like, that's the kind of stuff that you'd face, you know, like all the time. And I know they were trying to make it exciting, you know, that I didn't know if I won, but sure, like, you know.
And you're obviously very active on social media. Do you find that social media is a real easy tool for you, or like to get your message out there?
Incredibly handy, and I think as well for me it showcases that I'm a normal person living a normal life. Like, you know, I have like nieces and nephews, and they're always on my Instagram. We're always doing different things. I remember I uploaded something just around Christmas time on my Instagram stories, and it was my niece got a motored car for Christmas, and she wanted to drive around the front yard, but she wouldn't go unless I went with her, because she was like, oh my god, we can race. Now she's like 2. And I remember like the video was just us driving around, and everyone was like, oh, that's so cute, you know, different things like that. But like, again, that's just normal life. Like, my niece is 2, she doesn't care, and also like I don't care either. Like, she asked me to play with her, and that was my way of playing with her.
And are you addicted to your phone?
Oh yeah, completely. Like, I get the screen time reports, and it's really embarrassing, you know, and it's like, you've spent 8 hours, and you can't really imagine yourself sitting for 8 hours like directly. But I'm like, mad, I'm a mad scroller. Yeah. It's proper procrastination. Like,
I think like they've said now, is it 3 seconds even? You know, that's if you're I think of a 3-second memory, but even that, if you can, people are just trying to get you to stop your finger or stop a point on the screen, that's a success for anybody, because everybody's just swiping down.
I even like love the fact that you can get like, you could download apps to like disconnect. I'm like, what's the point of downloading the app to disconnect?
Did you go through a social media ban one time yourself? Did you give it up or try it for Lent?
I did. I was living over in England for a year because I was doing a year abroad program with UCC in the criminology course, and I was living with 7 girls in total, and I said to them as a joke that I was thinking of giving up Lent giving up social media for Lent, and we were all like laughing. Now, I lived with a Muslim, a Church of England, and a Jewish girl, and 2 Chinese girls. So like, there was a good mix of us in there, and I remember they were like, "What's Lent?" first of all, and I was like, "It's like the thing where like Jesus would do it and blah blah blah." I didn't even know what I was talking about. I was like, "I hope this sounds good," you know. And I remember that I said, "Oh, I'll give it it up and like see what happens. And I remember I kind of felt like it's a bit pointless if I just do it for myself. Like, let's do it for someone. And a friend of mine basically said we should do it for charity and like get other people involved. And yeah, people loved it. Like, we raised, I think, like...
So did you do full 40 days?
We did the full 40 days. Yeah. And I think every time I, like, you know, accidentally broke it. I say accidental, I intentionally broke it sometimes.
You penalised yourself, did you? Or?
I'm a huge Barcelona fan, and when I was doing my Lent ban, they came back against Paris Saint-Germain, you know, the 6-1 infamous game, and I wanted to see the general social media reaction, and I wanted to like cry along with like all the pictures of the goal, and yeah, I broke it, but I penalised myself. I'd pay up, and yeah.
So it's Barcelona. That's a passion of yours, is it? Barcelona soccer team?
Yeah, Barcelona are my favourite team. We always joke in the Irish Times that you should never reveal your colours, both political and sports. But I always feel that I think everyone should know I'm a pure Spanish media fan. Like they go in wearing their jerseys, content, and at least you know where the bias is coming from.
Yeah. And how did that come about? How why Barcelona? Was it?
So originally I was a huge Ruud van Nistelrooy fan. I wasn't a Man United fan, but I was a Ruud van Nistelrooy fan, and he moved to La Liga to play with Real Madrid, and I watched El Clasico and I really liked Barcelona instead. And yeah, I just kind of took a shine to them for my 18th birthday. My mom gave me a present of going to Barcelona, and then I met the team for my 18th birthday.
New camp.
Yeah, so I met Messi for my 18th. It was Easter Sunday as well, and he scored 30 goals.
Go away.
Yeah, Jesus rose that day for me. Lionel Messi.
And your day-to-day writing and or week-to-week writing, but it's not predominantly soccer. You have a wide range within sports, isn't it?
Yeah, my role in the Irish Times is to promote women in sports, and that's obviously exciting now with 20 by 20 and all the other stuff coming out. Like, they've just released like their figures for like last year's.
So what exactly is 20 by 20?
So 20 by 20 is a thing that women in sport are trying to do to raise the media coverage, the participation rates, and everything to do with women in sport by 20% by 2020. So obviously the Irish Times got involved, and I did the women in sports in general. And I remember like 20 by 20 just came out, to their company as well. They just came out and had their like publications on like, you know, the findings and the research. And so 3% of our print coverage is dedicated to women in sport. Now I can tell you what Raheem Sterling drives. I can tell you what Cristiano Ronaldo like lives in. I can tell you like the private jet belonging to the Man City owner. I can tell you everything about men's sport. But when it comes to women in sport, we just do the bare minimum and kind of hope it kind of passes. And I suppose when I got the role with the Irish Times, I remember thinking, God, like what can I possibly write about? You know, because it's hard to find match reports, it's hard to find different things. And I suppose when I graduated eventually, I said, you know what, I'm going to throw myself into it, do the best job I possibly can, and hope, you know, something comes out of it. But I found out that I actually love doing the women in sport, and if someone took it away from me, I'd be like, no, that's my baby.
Well, why do you think it's only 3% of the column inches is dedicated to women's sport?
I suppose a lot of people they think a lot of people don't care, and I think we can show from attendance figures, you know, like 50,000 at the ladies football final. You know,
record. This will go out next week. So last Friday, the Ireland-England rugby match, they had a record attendance of any Six Nation game they had last Friday night.
Yeah, and like even rugby is like powering through. Mike Ross is now the scrum coach, and I mean that's a big bonus because like Mike Ross is a name that you can say I know him.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, without having seen it for some reason, don't think it's any good. I like my brother, a different brother, he watched the ladies football final, and he actually rang me and he was like, that was the best game of football I've seen all year, because ladies football and even women's sport, it's like the purest form of it. Like it's where the rules haven't been like tampered with. It's where everything is just kind of free flowing and you can just express yourself and whatever. And I think, you know, for me, it's just kind of weird that a lot of people don't really get involved in it. Like I know my friends now, like this year now, they've pledged that like if they follow say Arsenal or Man United or Man City, that like they'd follow the women's game if the games are on nearby as well. Like, you know, and
but isn't there like a huge drop off in ladies' participation in sport from like mid to late teens to like the early 20s? Now it's the same in kind of some male sports as well, but in particular in females, isn't it? And it happens maybe a few years earlier than it would with a man.
I think when a girl turns 13, they're 50% likely to drop out of whatever sport it is that they're in general. And that's true, different reasons. That's true, like disappointments. That's true, maybe like personal issues, but a lot of them is like kind of they don't want to be seen as manly because sports is still seen as manly to this day, or they don't want to be kind of mocked for it, or they don't want to have a specific body figure, you know, or different things like that. And that is like kind of sad that a lot of it is like, you know, pre-embedded judgments that we have about women's role kind of in society, that they can't look a certain way or they can't do certain things and like different things like that. Like I mean, I remember like my first job ever was to go to the Rugby World Cup, the Women's Rugby World Cup that was held in Ireland in 2017. And I remember 6 nuns came in, and we were all kind of like sitting there, and next thing, I don't know, there was like an insane tackle, and next thing one of the nuns was like, Jesus, she'd hurt herself, but it was great, wasn't it? And you were like, you know, damn right it was good. Like, it was good tackle, even in the men's game. But you see now, like, even issues like in camogie now, like, as an example, like, the girls can't, you know, hurling and camogie in general is a physical game. Like, you're swinging sticks at one another. Like, you're going to get hurt. But the women's game doesn't really allow physicality, and therefore it's very stop-start and kind of ruins the game.
But isn't it great to see the likes of big sponsors, like nationwide supermarkets coming on board and sponsoring like the camogie and sponsoring ladies football and hurling and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I suppose without Lidl and without Liberty Insurance and like all those who are supporting the game, like they will be lost. Like, I mean, Lidl have just pledged for another up until 2022, and like they're pledging so much money, not just even into the senior game, but into underage girls, into club games and things like that. Like, I know a few clubs have gotten like little grants, as they call it, and would have gotten kits out of that, you know, and things that they would have had in general, which I think should be supplied by any G18.
Yeah, like, but I think maybe if they're at that level of it, we'll see the reward of it in 10 years' time. If any of those girls stay at the game and they become county stars, or it might be.
Definitely, and I suppose the thing that people don't realise is that with better sponsorship is that you have better games underage, therefore you have better senior games. So the games that we're seeing now are genuinely at a good level. Like, I mean, I wouldn't lie if they were. And you do get bad games, like, but you get bad games too in the main game. But if the girls underage are like being trained that bit better, or they're being developed that little bit better, then the senior game then can only benefit.
What do you make of the Irish ladies rugby situation, where you see England, who have now gone fully professional? Fair enough, it's only the last year. And Ireland, who, you know, these girls, like, there's no lack of effort and commitment, but they get up the next day and they go and work their job as teachers, guards, whatever it might be. What are your thoughts on that? Like, that gap surely is just going to widen, is it, unless the RFU really support and fund the Irish rugby? Rugby.
I suppose the thing with the IRFU, like, I have kind of written about their I think the IRFU hate me, but I think they you know, I basically, you know, would have said, you know, it's kind of weird that like Ireland deems itself now as a rugby country, which is absolutely fine. Like, anyone can go and enjoy whatever sport they want to enjoy, and we have a huge core of people following the rugby teams and different things like that. But I suppose where the IRFU kind of fails, and this is even in men's, is that they don't get people in the door for like Corkhan, you know, or Belvedere or any of the other places, you know. So like at grassroots, we're still struggling with rugby, and then in the women's game, it's like that struggle is very evident, because like it's not there then for the senior team, and the senior team maybe aren't as good. And then of course you have the fact that, you know, England, France and New Zealand are now professional teams. Australia, I think, are now gone semi-pro as well. But like, they're reaping the rewards. Like, when Australia announced that they were going semi-pro, they saw their game increase by 130% in terms of participation rate. So like, girls could see it as like a viable career.
To be fair to the RFU, there is like a 7 circuit, which is very marketable at the moment, because it's international. You don't have to.
Sevens is a great game though. It's like really fun to watch.
Really entertaining. Yeah. And like, you don't have like a panel of 25, 30 people where you can actually just have 10 or 12 players. Yeah. And that budget can be contained. So to be fair to RFU, there is a full-time sevens team on the circuit. And
they are reaping the rewards from that now though. Like, they've just got to the semi-finals, which was the best placed team ever, like from our Irish perspective in a rugby sevens. You know, so like, I suppose that would be like the trigger, the warning sign, is that the RFU can see if we do invest in the women's game, we can get like huge rewards from it, you know.
Okay, well listen, I'm going to test your sporting knowledge now and predictions.
Okay.
So we've just had round 1 of the Six Nations. So Ireland just got bet by England just there. This is going to go back. This is going to go out Friday week, which I think is the 15th of February. So we will have had the Scottish game. So what were your thoughts actually on the game last week, the men's game?
So I actually had to work. I was working the Dublin Donegal ladies football game, so I did miss the rugby. Okay. But I watched it afterwards, and it was a little bit awkward. I think there was just a lot of. I think that's the beauty of Ireland, isn't it? Like, we hype up something to like the highest degree, and then watch it like, you know, crash before our very eyes.
All over.
And then we're like, no,
sack the coach, sack 5 players.
Yeah, but no, I think this.
On a serious note, do you think that they were, as an Irish, the mentality of Irish people, are we able for the favourites tag?
You know what? I thought out of all the teams that had the favourites tag, latched onto them for dear life, I did think this rugby team, and I actually do think it will. I did think this rugby team would survive, and I did think they'd play England, but I think Eddie Jones had the players maybe hyped up in terms of like a motivational level, you know, like remember last year we had the Scummy Irish, you know, and different things like that from Eddie Jones, and
he's an expert at it, isn't he?
yeah, he's an expert at it, but then like,
Yeah.
you know, likes of Joe Schmidt, then like he's just such an expert tactician that like everything is like down to like the finest nitty gritty, and a lot of players like have come out and have said that they felt more relaxed on the field because like with Joe, you know exactly what you're
Yeah.
doing, you know your own plan,
Yeah.
and but I think they will bounce back. Like I think
Yeah.
they will beat Scotland, and I think it'll be fine. I think the big one now obviously is the World Cup, because I think they had that hoodoo kind of for some unknown reason over them, and it's like Joe Schmidt's like last hurrah as well. So
Yeah, I think if we got to a semi-final, that's the benchmark then, isn't it?
I love
You know?
Irish mentality. It's
You
like,
know?
well, if we get to
The
something,
semi-final.
yeah, if we get to something.
Yeah, so-
like, I lived in England for a year, and I remember Owen Farrell's his like cousin or something like lived behind me, and I remember him basically saying like, oh yeah, Scummy Irish like again or whatever. We were mocking, but then he was basically saying like, if they don't win the next World Cup, like
Yeah.
he's done. And I was like, if we get to a semi, it'll be great.
Realistic expectation.
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put your pin to the collar here now. So I want you to call. Who's going to win the Six Nations?
I think Ireland can still win the Six
Ireland?
Nations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Wales.
Do you?
Yeah, I think they're just coming up there. Warren Gatton's a great coach. I think Scotland are going to do very well this year.
I'm
I
still
think it's
bitter
very
with like
competitive.
Warren and the Lions. I'm still
Yeah,
like that
over
level of bitter. Yeah, I'm
Brian
like
O'Driscoll.
he can't have any form
Yeah.
of success while I'm alive. So
He's still a great coach.
He's still
You
a
can't
great
deny his
coach.
success.
Yeah,
Do you know, whatever,
he's
I
a
do
good
agree with
coach,
you.
Yeah.
I think Wales, so we'll go Ireland. Who's going to win the Hiding Cup?
Oh God.
You know, and I know there's all Munster bias here, but
I know, yeah.
realistically-
I'm just laughing because like rugby is not my like forte. So I'm like,
Okay.
oh God. I think Leinster or else
Okay.
Racing might win it. I'm gonna go completely out of
I
the.
think Racing is a good call, yeah.
I think Racing are
Um,
kind of.
Okay, one last rugby one. So who's going to win the World Cup?
I think New Zealand.
New Zealand again.
Yeah. I flew home with the South African team once accidentally. Well, not accidentally, like I was on like the plane.
Same
I was
flight.
coming back from South Africa and they were going to England for the Rugby World Cup.
Okay.
And I remember the only hoodie I had on was South African hoodie, and they were like, oh, you South African? I was like, no.
So the men's hurling, All Ireland Hurling Championship this year in September.
The
First Sunday, who's going to be
men's-
playing?
Ooh, the men's hurling. I think Galway will be back in the final. And I think they'll be playing... Do you know what? Limerick are actually ruthless. I thought they'd have like the year-long hangover that you always have like post All Ireland. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're thereabouts again. I think Galway are my favourites to win it.
Okay. Well, I'm from Tip.
Yeah,
I'm
that
going
was
to say Tip.
that was quite sour, wasn't it? You think Waterford?
Yeah.
My God.
Let's see. I think it's going to be an interesting championship because it's very open.
I think it's very open as well.
Because that Kilkenny reign that was so strong for that whole nearly the late 90s all through the noughties kind of broken a small bit now, where anyone on their day now can nearly beat anyone else.
I think so, and I think the thing with hurling is that like you have to be on your day in that moment. Like you can't actually like half. I think Galway are probably the only ones who can sacrifice maybe a half-assed kind of performance. But I think when it comes to the nitty-gritty championship,
Yeah,
you know,
I actually was at a talk recently where Brian Cody was speaking. He just, God, it's so simple what he says, you know, and it clicks with you. But he was just talking about the spirit of the camp. you know,
Yeah,
having
yeah.
around, win or lose. That when you're winning, you don't get too caught up in it, but that's what gives you confidence. And then when you do lose, that's kind of what builds you back up again.
yeah. I remember like the most important thing I learned from sports was probably actually Joe Schmidt. It was win every game in front of you, be it in life in general or actual sports. Like just win every game that's in front of you, and I think that's applicable. Like it's so funny how sports psychology can be applicable to everyday life.
Yeah, and I, it's mad then if you were to look at how the Irish rugby team will dissect that game last week on the Monday, say the review, then they'll watch every part of the game, and they'll give an individual, review, and then they'll give you what Joe Smith calls work-ons. But like if you were to transfer that into your day-to-day life, you'd be a superhuman all the time, even your working life.
Yeah,
carry that,
yeah.
Isn't it? It transfers the other way as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's like huge. I think like loads of people are obsessed with like that corporate kind of psychology, but in a sports way. I think it's just very applicable, and I think we all want to know how our favorite
It's really
sports stars
interesting,
tick.
isn't it? And also, I think the beauty of sport is no matter how much you do that, you're not guaranteed to win.
Yeah, that's true. And I think what's even cooler is that like in a GA context, like they're all amateurs. So they're all people like you'll work with tomorrow and like different things like that. And they're all like everyday normal guys. Like, yeah.
Getting on with so much dedication, isn't it?
Yeah, so much, yeah. It's mad.
Okay, so that's a rugby. The hurling. Men's football.
Oh, probably be Dublin for the 5 in a row.
Oh, Mayo, no. Is that the year Mayo for Sam? No.
No.
Definitely not this year.
I think next year maybe Mayo will be.
Okay.
They probably make a final. Like James
Yeah.
Warren just knows, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah.
But I think I can't see anywhere like beyond Dublin. I know
Dublin
Monaghan
5.
beat them, and genuinely my underdogs like in general would always be Monaghan, because I always just think Monaghan are always thereabouts.
Yeah, they just beat them in the league recently, didn't they? But they did that last year. Didn't they do the first game of the league last year, I think, as well?
Dublin?
Monaghan bet Dublin, wasn't it?
No, I don't think so. I think Dublin ran won all the way through that year as well.
All right, okay. I saw it, but they did beat them.
They
this
beat,
grand.
they beat them in
I thought they did
yeah.
maybe I just read that wrong. Yeah. Okay. Ladies camogie. The camogie
I think Cork
championship.
will win it again. I
Cork
just
again?
think they're too strong. I think Kilkenny set up way too defensively. Another team that I would look out for if they can get their shape right is probably Galway. If Galway got everything right about them, like from board all the way down to grassroots, it'll be a good championship. Like, but
Really competitive.
Yeah.
Ladies football.
Oh, so like my top three in general would be Dublin, Cork, and I think Donegal will be in it as well this year. They have a brand new team and they just beat Dublin as well in the ladies football, so they'll be kind of hot off the heels.
What did you make of the Mayo situation last year? With kind of the player revolt and they were put off the panel and...
I suppose in general, what everyone should take from it is, in general, if there's a manager feud, obviously watch the language used, because especially if it's a female and male kind of dynamic. So like when they came out and said that it was for their welfare. I think we all kind of jumped to conclusions, and I think it wasn't maybe that case. And I'm not saying it was people throwing toys out the pram. I just think it was such a high level sports environment that maybe certain people couldn't have coped and different things like that. And they have the right to walk away. I'm not saying they don't. But I think as well, that actual whole incident showed how we view in general, like, women in sport. Like, do we shout at them? Do we, like, abuse them? Not abuse them, but, like, you know, can we say, oh, for God's sake, you know, different things like that, and different things like that. So it definitely showed a different dynamic. But, you know, Peter Leahy came out and he basically said that, like, more male managers need protection from things like that, because, you know, you can't throw stones like that. Like, I mean, that does damage lives. But I think he's got a good team now this year, but I think it'll be another year by the time we'll see them kind of propelling.
English Premiership?
I'm going to say Man City.
So right now, I think Man City have gone...
Man City are now top
on
goal difference. Yeah, level on points. So I think Man City are going to kick on. I can't see Pep Guardiola letting this one slip. But you know, if you are a betting person, Jurgen Klopp has always won in the third year of his management reign. And this is Jurgen Klopp's third year of being manager of Liverpool. So if you
like, I'm a Liverpool supporter. Like, it's every year. Like,
it's every year. No, there's a Jurgen Klopp, like, he did it with Mainz, he did it with Borussia Dortmund, and he took it to a Champions League final as well in his third year against Bayern Munich. But yeah, his third year is always his, like, golden year. And
he has a great crop of players around him at the moment, hasn't he? Like,
he does, but, like, you know, I always get, like, really, like, I'm a Barcelona fan, so anything like Liverpool, I'm like, oh God, the hype train is starting again. Like, thank God I'm over here in La Liga living my best life. But I just can't mentally cope with Liverpool fans sometimes. Like, they're an intense breed.
They've had so much pain and misery now for nearly 29 years.
Go back to 2005 and memorise, like, you know, live Istanbul again, for God's sake. You find out.
I'd say a lot of them do. They probably watch it
I
every
remember
night.
the day after the infamous, and this will break your heart, but sorry, so the infamous Steven Gerrard slip. One of our friends was, like, a huge, like, Liverpool fan, and he was, like, giving out to me, and I think my friend who's an Arsenal fan, he was like, oh, you're all laughing now, but, like, wait till you see blah blah blah. And unfortunately for him, just as he was reversing backwards, he fell, and we were all, like, laughing. We were like, hey, Steven Gerrard lives on. So that's Steven Gerrard.
The only thing about that, and Steven Gerrard gets blame, like, I think the next game was against Crystal Palace, and Liverpool were either 3-0 up or 3-1 up, and Brendan Rodgers brought on another forward instead of just securing it.
Yeah.
And Crystal Palace came back and drew the game. And that was kind of the turning point of lost their momentum, and then the slip happened. So it wasn't just that point, you know, that was critical.
I think what was, like, the most ironic thing was that Brendan Rodgers always said that they had great character, and then the last few hurdles,
they fell.
The character just wasn't there. And either that was management, like, top to toe point of view or what, but but Jurgen Klopp, he's a different breed. He is a different breed. Like, he, like, I don't know how, like, I know Brendan Rodgers coaches in, like, a manager to player kind of position, but Jurgen Klopp is, like, my friends to a certain degree. Like, he's still, like, really good pals with some of the Borussia Dortmund lads that he left behind. So
it's I think that dynamic between player and coach, you know, I think it's very specific to every coach. Like, you look at Alex Ferguson, from an outsider, you think he was an authoritarian, very disciplinary, but if you look beneath the surface, he was actually very close to all the players.
He was, but, like, he also was quite ruthless in the way he worked, which is, like, going back to earlier, and, like, the ruthlessness and how to succeed in life. Like, I mean, once David Beckham got big, out David Beckham went. Like, once Cristiano Ronaldo got big, out Cristiano Ronaldo went.
He cut Jaap Stam, like, he fell out with a lot of people and had no qualms about it.
He did, and the only person that he ever loved was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I find it really ironic that Ole Gunnar is, like, the saviour now of United.
Do you think he is?
Oh yeah, I think they should give him the job. Oh yeah, I think they should.
I think he understands the fabric of the club.
He does, and I think he knows, like he's been sitting on the bench long enough. Like Ollie Gunnar is like the epitome of if you bide your time and do your work, it'll come to you eventually. Like 99, he was a sub, unused a lot of the time, and Alex Ferguson, last chance saloon. Come on, Ollie. But I remember Alex Ferguson actually came out and said a few years ago that Ollie Gunnar Solskjaer was his best student in terms, so like he'd have like notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of Alex Ferguson's like match tactics, and things like that. That he was always dying to learn about the game. But you can even see that like even on the field, he evolves the game a bit more.
Yeah, and he's the kind of guy. He's very likable. Solskjaer, so
he's like your kid next door.
But even like his Man United, who people love to hate, and even Butch United, but people I think will enjoy if he was successful.
I think they'd enjoy it for Ollie Gunnar. I don't think they'd enjoy it for him.
Yeah,
I can see Graham Souness having a mental breakdown about Paul Pogba if Man United are ever successful.
Do you think that like because Mourinho like is such a successful coach, such like a brand, such like do you think that having the new coach brought that change about, or do you not think that like as professional football players they should have just gone on with the job, and if they had personal differences with the coach they should have still performed on the pitch on the Saturday afternoon or the Monday night? That just because this new guy is in now we're going to play better and I'm getting paid 200,000 sterling a week?
I think the thing with Mourinho is that like you could have your personal differences with him, and I remember other coaches like Zlatan Ibrahimovic loves Jose Mourinho, but you can just see that Zlatan would love Jose Mourinho. Like Zlatan loves to be kind of told like, oh, you're crap, you're brutal, different things like that, whereas the likes of like the Paul Pogba, like you see with Didier Deschamps, it was like kind of good pal, good natured environment, and Paul Pogba strives when, not that he's like the centre of attention, but when he's the vocal point like of a group. And with Jose Mourinho, like fair enough, the players probably should have performed on the day, but Jose Mourinho was quick as well to get personal. Like in his press conferences, he would specifically say like, oh yeah, Paul Pogba's not performing, or Luke Shaw.
Sometimes those mind games work though, don't they?
Sometimes they do, but I think it's different players. Like going back to the likes of Zlatan, it works for the likes of him. I think it works for Cristiano Ronaldo as well. Like he loves to be kind of challenged, and to only a certain degree. Like that's the thing. Like if Cristiano Ronaldo thinks someone's overstepping, he's very quick to pull the plug as well. Like, but I think Jose will be back. I think he's going to manage Real Madrid for the upcoming season. I think
so.
Yeah, like
I saw something recently. Well, I know he's had a fall on ice in Russia. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh yeah, that was so embarrassing. But Florentino, like Perez, he loves the drama. He loves Jose. He loves everything. Like I think I remember when an El Clasico came and Jose Mourinho was, I think Barcelona hammered them maybe like 4-0 or 6-1 or one of those. And I remember the Barcelona fans saying, Jose, you can get out of the theatre now. Because the whole idea was that it was just a play. It was just a drama.
Do you think he'll go into international manage Portugal?
I think he probably wouldn't get enough attention. He wouldn't like it. I think he'd
10 games a year or something.
I think he'd probably. I think he needs something a bit more like consistent. I don't think Jose Mourinho is the type of person that you could bring in a player for a week and a half and hope gets his ideas. Like I think he's a very specific type of manager. I can see like the FAI hiring them accidentally, knowing the FAI and Jose coming out saying this is the best that I have and I can only work with what I have, and we're all like, yeah, agreed.
But you're really passionate about sport. Like, does it consume you? Do you watch a lot of games during the week?
Yeah, it's really funny when people say, does it consume me? I'm like, I do have other hobbies, surprisingly. But I watch as much as I possibly can. Like, I totally enjoy going out to different games. Again, it's just the meeting people. It's being involved in like an activity and a hobby and things like that. And I think what we're learning now with sport is that like everyone has a role no matter what it is. And whenever I do like kind of talks to like sports teams or whatever, like that's always like the key point, that everyone has a role. Like when I was younger, everyone would be like petrified to say around me, oh, she can't kick a football. And it's like, it's kind of obvious. Like I know I can't like, kick a football. Like let's not, but I knew there was a role for me in some shape or form, and I found that hopefully in sports journalism.
Yeah, and that's it. So what's the future for Joanne O Riordan at the moment?
I'd obviously love to take the sports journalism, obviously a bit more, love to take that like a little bit further, make it a bit more full time. A lot of people are always asking me if there's a book coming. There's no book coming. And not yet. When I'm like 80, like I'll print it, and like the second I pop off, I'll release it. But no, I suppose for me, we're launching a podcast kind of soon, a sports podcast, like, and it's on all different topics, not just women in sport, not just disability in sport. It's absolutely everything. And I do my public talks as well. So I'm very busy. But if you want to, where I want to be when I'm like 26, I would have hoped to have covered at least a few major tournaments, or either be like kind of full-time GA kind of correspondent to a degree. Even if it's ladies football, I'll take it.
Sure. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for your time.
Cool.
We're huge admirers here at the Sweeney Show. We're going to be watching you the next couple of years. We know you're going to be a huge success.
No pressure, guys.
No
pressure.
No pressure to you. So listen, we wish you all the very best of luck, and thank you so much.
Cheers, thanks for having me.